so very much for joining us for another session of ACE Spotlight. Today, I am joined with ACE alumni, Maddie who has held not one, but two ACE Epic positions and is currently located in Swan Quarter, North Carolina. Maddie, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate you being here. And without further ado, I'd love for you to give a little bit more information around kind of who you are. Who is Maddie? What's your background? So
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Maddie. I am from Buffalo, New York, which is Western New York. And I grew up in between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, which really jump-started my love for science, especially water, and anything that was crawling around in there or swimming around or flying around. And that eventually led me to pursue a degree in marine science at Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida, with a minor in anthropology. And after that, I have held a myriad of seasonal positions from conservation corps to trails crews and some non-core jobs. But all in all, I have worked in conservation since graduating college, and that is what I hope to continue to work in.
yeah. Oh my gosh. That's kind of wild. I think about moving from New York to Florida. That's kind of a jump. And studying marine science, kind of how, I guess I kind of want to know a little bit more around like your pathway, like including your ACE positions. Obviously, we'd love to talk about our ACE positions, but I know you mentioned that you've done a couple different other core positions and kind of non-core jobs as well. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So I want to start off by saying something I wish I knew even in high school is that this was an option. So I didn't realize conservation corps were a thing that I could go into until I was a junior in college. It was my spring junior college year, and I was applying for RUs, which are research experiences for undergrads, left and right. I think I applied to like nine. I didn't get any. That is okay. I actually don't want to be in the lab, which I learned.
Yep.
And I finally applied to one position with New York State Department of Conservation as a invasive species steward. And when I got it, I was very surprised, very excited. But I did have to come to terms with the fact that it wasn't going to be related to marine science or fisheries. And this wasn't like the end of my career that I hadn't started yet because I was still in college. This wasn't anything that, I had to do this now because this is what I chose to do for my summer in between junior and senior year. But it actually turned out to be a really awesome experience. So through working at that conservation corps position, my crew lead was actually with another conservation corps called SCA, which is Student Conservation Association. And talking to him and learning that this was an option that I could go and live in national parks, state park land, other federal and privately owned lands, and get paid to work and do different forms of conservation felt like somebody took, the wool from over my eyes. So I went back to school senior year. I finished and graduated with, as I mentioned, a bachelor's of science in marine science, biology concentration, but also with a minor in anthropology. And I knew I wanted to combine those two for the rest of my career. And I'm still figuring out how to do that. But I think having that internship junior year of college really gave me a strong starting point to do that. And it's also cool because to join most of the corps, you don't have to even have a degree most of the time. You need to be 18 and okay with living in the woods sometimes. So after I graduated, as mentioned, I went and worked two different core positions with SCA. One was out in Yellowstone working with fisheries, and another one was in the Adirondack Park, which is a state park in New York State, on a winter chainsaw trails crew, which is
Those,
not marine science.
yeah, very different, very different.
So, yes. Also, shameless plug for that corps because it was all women, not supposed to be all women, but that was who applied and who were selected. So that was pretty cool. But it gave me clarity on what I wanted to do.
Mm,
It made me realize that you can be strong in this industry and you can work in a ton of different environments and temperatures, and you're still a biologist. Like, I wasn't doing anything related to animals when I was on that crew. It was to fill between seasons, but it still helped me a lot.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing, Maddie. So I know you've kind of talked a little bit about kind of how you kind of came into this, how you kind of learned about conservation through your degree and kind of discovering the world of conservation corps. How did ACE come into your life? How did you find the positions? I know you've had a couple positions here with ACE. What was your first position here at ACE that you found?
So my first position with ACE was in the EPIC program with Fish and Wildlife over at Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge, which is in New York, near where I grew up. And it was interesting because I didn't even know we had a National Wildlife Refuge within an hour of where I grew up until I graduated college and came back home to New York. And we actually have two in that area. So that was pretty cool. But
I
my
can relate
work at
to that.
Iroquois,
Like,
what?
sorry. I can relate to that. I grew up in Oregon, which you throw a stone and you hit how many different forests? I
Yeah,
had no idea growing up. Like just in my
yeah,
backyard, there was like a
yeah,
whole playground.
yeah. So, seeing the position for ACE, it was an invasive species management steward, and it was for 8 weeks, and it was mainly to fill a gap in between graduation and going off to another conservation corps experience that was at the end of the summer. But once I joined the EPIC program and was at Fish and Wildlife, I realized I was like, this is kind of really cool, and this is a really neat opportunity to be partnered with a federal agency that I might not get into otherwise if I hadn't had someone open the door for me like ACE EPIC program does. And what that position entailed was myself, my co-intern, and another ACE EPIC member who was biology support. So more or less what I did at this ACE internship. Um, Out in the woods of Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge with an iPad, ArcGIS, and a lot of bug spray. And we went out and we were attempting to map all of Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge for invasive species. So that's mainly plants, and there was about a handful of species of plants that we were monitoring. And we would do plots of surveys through the refuge itself. And that was our day-to-day duties, but we also got to help out with a lot of other things on biology staff, like banding purple martin fledgling chicks because we have a lot of purple martin houses on the refuge. Uh, Doing nest checks of eastern bluebird boxes and American kestrel nest boxes, along with bat surveys and just whatever else they needed us to assist with that day. So that was my kind of dipping the toe into the water of
Ah,
biology and the responsibility associated with it. But then coming here to Madame Mesquite National Wildlife Refuge in Eastern North Carolina, we're a part of a complex. So there's actually 9 refuges in this area of Eastern North Carolina, and a lot of people don't know that, or they
yeah.
only know about the ones on the Outer Banks.
Yes, that is
Yeah,
what I know. Okay,
um,
that okay.
yeah. So we actually manage 3, but I'm stationed at Madame Mesquite because that's where our offices are. And we're a lot of a smaller staff than I've ever worked with, so and sometimes it can be a little stressful. It would be nice to have more hands, but I have gotten to be responsible for a lot of different projects that I would have not if I guess we had more staff. But I've also proven myself to be responsible and to be given these projects and these activities to maintain. Some of which are my favorite project, Eastern Black Rail Surveying down at Cedar Island, which is our southern refuge we manage, and it's a coastal marsh system, so completely different than the 40,000 acre lake, freshwater lake that we manage here at Mattamuskie. Um, and yeah, those surveys were something I had done before, but they were new, relatively new to Mattamuskie staff here. And it just felt really awesome to go into a project with full confidence and knowing I had done it before and I'm going to do it again. And getting to see that land and actually getting to hear one of the black rails was really awesome because they are federally threatened at the moment. But yeah, my 2 ACE epic positions could not have been more different,
Yeah.
but at its core, it was ACE epic and it was really, really awesome.
Oh, that's so good to hear. Well, it's also just nice to hear that, in practice, right? The skills that you gain from these positions, like they are useful and beneficial in your career. And you had no idea how your career would zig and zag and what types of biology positions, again, starting off on a winter chainsaw crew, like, ugh, that just sounds cold. That just sounds cold, first of all. That just
It
sounds
was.
to go from where you are now, right? Working with Swan Quarter and, finishing your ACE Epic term, but still continuing this work and, figuring out again what's next for you and where your career will take you next. I know we've talked a little bit about it offline of kind of some ideas that you've got going on. But before we kind of jump into, I would love to end with some advice because you've got some really lovely advice, but I would love to first find out kind of what's next for you, if you've got any ideas or any things that you're excited about kind of in the future.
I would really like to start focusing on, um, I don't want to say a more narrow field of biology, but really coming into my own in a field and feeling like I am an expert in that area.
Mm,
And in the wake of a lot of different climate related disasters we've been experiencing in North America, I feel really pulled into climate change adaptation and mitigation
mm,
along with disaster recovery. And I've gotten to touch on some of those skills being here with ACE Epic and with different conservation corps. Some of those skills just being able to hike with a lot of weight on you in uncertain conditions, getting chainsaw certified through a different corps and having wilderness first aid. Um, just seeing what those skills could be used as, I think that plus some of the issues we've been facing recently with climate change have really pulled me into that field because the way I think about it is either I can continue in field biology, working with plants and animals that will continue to go extinct and continue to be placed on um, high watch levels, or I can start doing something about it. And I'm not going to change, I'm not going to fix climate change, but I really want to be a part of the effort to do something about it.
ugh, I just need to like give a moment for that moment. Because yes, you will. I have no doubts. I have no doubts from what I've learned in working with you and knowing you for this last year, which is kind of wild to think
I
about.
know.
And to think about where you're going to go. And I personally can't wait to see how your career shapes and shifts and zigs and zags and grows. I think you're going to do some pretty incredible things. With that, though, let's scale it back. Let's say you're talking to someone who doesn't know anything about conservation or might have some inklings of what conservation might be. What advice would you have for someone wanting to get into this world?
I would say, for starters, if you're in a field of biology broadly, like natural resources, forestry, wildlife biology, marine science, environmental science, anything, your degree is not a life sentence. Like when I went to undergrad, I thought I was going to be a shark biologist. I took so many classes in elasmobranch biology, which is sharks and rays. I went on so many like shark cruises and all that stuff and tagging, and that experience still is with me, and I'm still happy with where I am right now. But you don't need to push yourself to some unholy standard because you're not doing exactly what your degree says. Like
Mm,
I still count myself as a scientist, not specifically a marine scientist, but that is my degree, and it's given me a lot of um, good like background to push off on to understand a lot of these systems that I do end up working in. Additionally, find what you're passionate about
mm,
and almost focus a career around that. Someone I was recently speaking with within Fish and Wildlife said this, and it's very. I like it, so I'm gonna share it with you. She said, "How lucky are we to have a job that we don't have to worry about a psychological income?" So basically, do you like what you're doing? Does it make you happy? Do you feel like you're making a difference? And I really like that. And so finding a position where you feel like you're doing something and you're doing something for yourself and whatever environment is on the opposite side of that work is something that's really important. And it might not be to the letter what your degree was in, but that's okay.
yeah, yeah, that is okay. And again, all that experience, right, just builds on one another to get you to where you are today. I love that. I love that. Maddie, thank you so very, very, very much for joining me today and sharing just a little glimpse into the life of Maddie Was. Thank you again, and good luck. I know you're on the East Coast battling hurricane after hurricane. So stay safe, and thank you so very much for what you do and what you will continue to do.
Thank you.